This is an SM Media production.
Things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through.
Hi everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Sit Down right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host. We've got a very special guest this week, delighted to be joined by one of the 9-in-a-row winning heroes, former Aberdeen, Rangers and Leeds man, David Robertson. It's an absolute pleasure to be on, David. Thanks very much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. It's looking forward to it. Hopefully the internet, I'm in India just now, so hopefully the internet holds up. Sometimes it can be a bit patchy, so I'm sure what will last. Hopefully it'll be okay.
Brilliant. How are you? Are you doing well?
Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, we've got our first game on Sunday, so it's been a long time in starting. It's a bit of a hybrid season. You play each other once and then you break off like the SPL. But no, it's just good to get back in again. Just obviously just good to be. Being in India as well is not the easiest place with the COVID thing going on. I mean, it's not easy anywhere, but particularly here. So, but the league's been pretty good. We've been in quarantine and we're now in bubbles now. So it's every precaution's been taken, and so far, touch wood, everybody's nice and safe.
Yeah, are you still behind closed doors? Is there no fans allowed in? Yeah.
No fans at all. No, although in India, you imagine somebody will sneak in. We actually played a tournament. We played a pre-season tournament, and nobody's allowed in, but somehow people managed to get in. So, but I think the league itself will be a bit more strict. They can't take any chances now.
Yeah, definitely. Just a wee thing before we touch on your career. Just obviously this season's been kind of Celtic going for 10 in a row. Rangers have started really, really well. Which have been your overall thoughts of the Scottish season so far?
Well, I think for the Rangers' point of view, I think Stephen Gerrard's done a fantastic job with the team. It hasn't been there that long, and now I mean you can see there's so many points ahead. I watched the Old Firm game there, and I don't think any Rangers fan could imagine them being in this position now. I think a lot of people thought it was a foregone conclusion that Celtic would get 10, but it makes it a little bit more interesting. I mean Celtic have had a fantastic run with quadruple trebles and treble trebles and all sorts of stuff. So I think it's nice that they've got a bit of a challenge now, and but hopefully some other teams can come up as well. If you look at like Hamilton as well. I mean, since they've changed the manager, I think he's won 6 in a bounce. So it's it's a lot of ups and downs there. But I think for the Rangers' point of view, it does make the I mean, it keeps my 9-in-a-row thing alive as well. So as soon as a team got to 10 in a row, it's over. So
brilliant. We'll make a wee start. Just obviously talk about when you start like growing up. Where did you grow up, and what was your kind of boys' club days like when you started playing?
Well, I grew up in Aberdeen, obviously, and I wasn't interested in football till I was about 8 years old. It was actually when Aberdeen won the League Cup in 1976. They beat Celtic 2-1. David Robertson scored the winner in extra time. My dad was a big Aberdeen fan. He'd go to all the games, and particularly the season ticket at Pittodrie. But I wasn't particularly interested in football. He would take me and my sister down to the Dirty Park in Aberdeen every Sunday, and he'd kick the ball about, and my sister would kick the ball about. I just wasn't interested until Aberdeen won the cup, and they took me down Union Street, saw the open top bus, and bought me the flags and the kit and all sorts of stuff, and I was hooked on football after that. Although my career didn't go off to the greatest start, I was a bit behind most of the boys that were playing. I tried out for the primary school team, and I didn't make it. I didn't get in it. So I think the first game or the second game, I think someone must have been ill, so I got called in, and I came on as a sub, and I quickly got subbed off again. I think it must have been that bad. My mum and my auntie took me that day. My dad was working, so I think they were a little bit embarrassed. So, but after that, I just kept practicing. Became probably the best player in the school team, and then I played for. There was a thing called Champion Street in Aberdeen. So it's I don't think it goes on anymore. But you pick a name of a street during the summer holidays, and you've got to live so many yards from that street, and you put in. A dad will pick a team, and I ended up playing there for Garty Gola. We got to the final. The final was actually at Pittodrie, so we got beat in the final. But after that, a few clubs, boys' clubs, came after me, and I went to Deeside Boys Club, which is now Banks of Dee, and I was there until I signed for Aberdeen. I stayed at one club the whole time, and I really enjoyed it, and I think because a lot of the players came from the area I grew up in, and it was quite consistent. The coaches were pretty good, and it was just a nice place. My dad was involved in it as well, so then obviously I got into all the primary school selects and secondary school selects, and eventually was lucky enough to sign S forms for Alec Ferguson. I think I was 14 at the time, so. Being growing up in Aberdeen, and by that time I was, watching Aberdeen play pretty regular with my dad when I could, because I was always played for the school team, boys club, boys brigade, any type of football. I joined any organisation to play football, so just like any boy did then. But no, I was fortunate that Alec Ferguson spotted me in the old Ash car park at Pittodrie one Monday night, and signed S forms, and I got the experience of going in the summer holidays, like so the Easter holidays and school holiday, summer holidays. I'd go in and train, and sometimes I would train with the first team. Not that I was first team material then, but a lot of the younger players got a chance to train with the first team, and it was just a great experience. And but I think as a player, as a kid anyway, growing up, maybe it was my first experience playing football when I wasn't that good, and I was subbed on and subbed off. That even when I played for Rangers and Aberdeen, and I just didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I felt that I was always lucky to be where I was, and maybe overachieving kind of thing. But as I say, it's been a dream really, and and here I am now at 52-year-old, and I'm still involved in the game. Okay, probably the last place on earth you want to be, but I'm still involved in it. So it's been good to me.
Brilliant. And obviously, when you went into Aberdeen, obviously you won the Youth Cup. Was it your second season at Aberdeen? You won the Youth Cup.
Yeah, well, I've actually won it. We beat Celtic. I think we were 2 or 3 nothing down at half time. It was actually Aberdeen won the first team won the league. They beat Hearts at Tynecastle 1-0. So obviously it's a big thing for Aberdeen to win the league. Rangers and Celtic, in those days were winning it, quite a lot. But for Aberdeen to do it, and they wanted to present the trophy to the home fans. So on a Tuesday night, we were playing Celtic in the Scottish Youth Cup final at Pittodrie, and it just so happened that they put the presentation before the game, and there was about 15,000 at the game. So I was in those days when you played in the youth team. It wasn't like I was under 18, but there was players. I was 14 or 15 at the time, and you're playing in this big stadium, and it's about 15,000 there. Obviously to see the first team, and the first team were there. Alec Ferguson was there. And then, Willie Garner was the assistant manager to Alec Ferguson at the time. And what he did was he took the team, and before the game, he said, the gaffer's here, the first team's here to see you. There's a big crowd here. This is a very important game. Go and enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we came in at half time, and we were 2 or 3 down. And Willie Garner comes in and basically says, look, come on, guys, damage limitation. It's a big night. No more goals. Just take it easy and just work hard. And at the same time, the doors flew open, and Alec Ferguson comes in and didn't miss anyone. 60-second whirlwind, hairdryer, a lot, you name it. Everybody's called every name under the sun. And bearing in mind, some of us were 14 and 15 and 16. And it seemed to last forever, but it was like 60 seconds all the way in the dressing room, all the way around every player back out, and everybody just sat there thinking, what just happened. But it just shows you we won. I think we won 5-3 in the end. So won the Scottish Cup. So he was the first to come in and congratulate everyone. And then the next season we won. I think we beat, I don't know if it was Queen of the South or something. So I actually won the Scottish Youth Cup twice. So it was a pretty big achievement early on.
Brilliant. And were you always a fullback, or did you play in a different position before that?
No, I was a left winger. And Alec Ferguson used to say that I lacked guile. I was a bit of a one-trick pony at left wing. I'd get the ball and I'd knock it past somebody and run. And I remember Alec Ferguson said a few times, he says, sometimes you've got to come across someone that's faster than you. And he ended up, he was right enough. As soon as I got to I think it was about 15 or something, I was playing the reserves quite regular then, and we were playing against adults, and I just didn't have enough about my game, and I really did doubt myself. I doubted myself before, but even more so then. And then we actually went to, I was almost like a left winger, sort of, I think on his way out more than anything. And then we went on a pre-season tour. Teddy Scott took us up to the Highlands somewhere. It might have been Keith or Office or somewhere. And this was with the reserves. There was guys like, I think Brian Gunn might have played, and Tommy McIntyre, Stevie Gray, and players like that. So I was Willie Faulkner. I was still young then. So we played on a Saturday, and there were so many injuries. Only 11 fit players on a Sunday. And they couldn't work out who could play left back, and I got told to play left back because I was the only guy with a left foot. So I played there, and I got man of the match, and I was a left back ever since. So, people say that, in football, it's, you deserve to be where you are. I think I've had a lot of luck and a lot of things go in my favour, and because I think I was I was a limited player, but I think that really sort of changed me, because I did feel that I was going absolutely nowhere as a left winger, even though I signed S-Swarms at Aberdeen as a left winger, and became a left back, and it just stuck then.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you do really well at youth level and move up to the first team, and you make your debut against Hamilton in the league at 17. What were the kind of pros like, the kind of first team players? What were they like with you, and who were the kind of good characters in that team?
No, they were brilliant. I mean, you got to remember, I was 17, and I was, a year or so before, I was collecting Panini stickers of Willie Miller, Alton McLeish, Peter Weir, and then suddenly you're playing you play same team, same dressing room, and they were fantastic. Willie was the grumpy one that would slaughter me all the time. Big Alec McLeish was the comforting one. He'd sort of arm around you, give you a bit of advice. Who, he's up there with some of the great players that I've played with.
Yeah.
He helped me so much, and he was coming to the end of his career, and he was a fantastic player. He'd always encourage me. But they were really made to make me feel welcome. I remember after my first game in the first team, because I was still on the ground staff at the time, I was laying out players' kits, first team kits, and everything. I remember I played against Hearts. The game against Hamilton, and on the Monday morning I come in, I go back into the away dressing room with reserves, and Teddy Scott says, "No, you're in the home dressing room now, son." And I'm going, "No, I don't want to go in there. I want to be with my mates. I don't want to go in there." And then you go in there, and there's Willie Miller, there's Alec McLeish, and Leighton, and Billy Stark, and John McMaster, all these big names that basically, the Gothenburg legends.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with them, and I've probably still got posters of them on the wall. When I go home at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt so uncomfortable. But they were great. They certainly look after you. Well, Alec McLeish, even to this day, has always got time for everyone. So, as I say, I was very, very fortunate to have, obviously, the personalities and the way they were with me, but obviously, playing with such great players at such an early age.
Brilliant. And obviously, Sir Alex was the manager. Just what's your kind of favourite memories of being there with him?
I've got quite a few, really. Some of them are not good, right enough. But he was, I think he was such a perfectionist. If you made a mistake and the team won 5-0, he would still have a go at you and tell you. And, one game I conceded a penalty kick in the last minute. I think it was, I can't remember, Dougie Arnott or someone at Motherwell. So Pittodrie were 2-1 up, and I gave away a penalty kick in the last minute. And he roasted me. But to be fair, on the Monday morning, he explained everything to me. And I think I gave away one penalty kick after that in the rest of my career, because it sticks with you. But no, there's many things. He used to have this game in the gym. What do you call it? With in the gym, it was called Tips. Him and Archie used to play it on a Friday afternoon. The ground staff, they would always you'd also have to referee the game. So whoever lost, they were going to give you a punishment, running or doing something. So this time there was 2 or 3 of us, and Archie won. So that was it. Fergie gave us a punishment, and he says, "Right, that's it. You're going to clean my car." So 2 or 3 of us had to go, and it was winter time. It's about 3 in the afternoon. You wanted to get home, but it's getting dark, and Fergie drove all over Scotland to watch games.
Yeah.
And there was about 1 million flies in front of this car, but to try and take them off. And I remember we go in, get a bucket of water, 3 of us, and we're going, "Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And we're thinking, right, he's not going to notice because it's going to get dark by the time he wakes up in the morning. So we just threw a bucket of water over it, and then we went back into the stadium, put the bucket back in the wee bit, and then we're walking towards the back door. And we're just at the door, it's a bit open, and then you hear Fergie, "Oi, where do you think you're going? Where do you think you're going?" And it was like a moment, what do we do? So we ran for it. We ran, And so one of the players, Robert, he had his dad's car, and we all piled in the back of his car. And we're sort of looking out the window, and then we see Fergie coming out, steam coming out of his ears and everything because we'd disappeared. And I had to take 2 buses to get home, or a bus to get home after Robert dropped us in the town. Scott was from Peterhead, so it took him longer. But by the time Robert got home, he was told by his mum that Fergie had called it to go back and clean the car. But there's, a lot of things he would tell you in the days going past with Charlie Nicholas. The perm at the back, the hair, everybody had them, and I had one as well. And he'd tell you to get your hair cut, and it's down a bit here, and you get this cut off. And then he'd tell you, right, that's it, I told you to get your hair cut. But I did get it cut. No. So he'd send you back up to get it all taken off. And but he was good for me. I think the one thing I found out about him is that I couldn't understand why you did the jobs in the ground staff, like brush carpet instead of hoovering it. Just the jobs you have to do. And it's to make you mentally tough.
Yeah.
And I think as well that he's just a born winner. The times that it's no surprise what he did at Manchester United when he used to talk about Fergie time at the end. It's just the will and the belief that he instills into all the players that you'll keep going to the last whistle and you'll never give up. And I think it started with that Youth Cup game against Celtic where you're 2 or 3-0 down at half time. He comes in and he was ballistic, and then you win 5-3. And if he hadn't came in, we wouldn't have won that. And it just shows you that you can do it. And just I think he instilled me being a winner, and I've still got that fire in my belly now.
Brilliant. When did you first hear that he was going to Man United?
It was weird because I was actually I was driving, but I was using my dad's car. So my dad was at the club, the golf club. So I'd drop him off and pick him up at a night to have a few drinks. And it was on the radio going in, and I just heard that he's going, that he'd left to go to Manchester United. And see, the next morning going into Pittodrie, it was as if it was a funeral. The place was dead. I don't think anyone could believe it. It's fantastic that he did go there, but no one could believe it. And it was just a real, it's probably the low, it wasn't low, but it was just an eerie feeling. It was almost like people were saying, well, what's next? Because, the likes of Alec McLeish and Willie Miller, they weren't getting any younger. So, and obviously Leighton ended up moving away. So there's a lot of uncertainty at Aberdeen at the time because it was almost like he'd always been there.
Mm-hmm. And when Ian Porterfield gets the job, what was your relationship like with him when he came in?
No, I think I quite liked him, but I think he didn't quite understand, what Aberdeen's like, obviously as a club. That, Aberdeen with Fergie, they were winning leagues and they're winning Scottish Cup and Cup Winners' Cup and they're winning everything. And I think he came in a little bit like the mentality of being in England. The leagues are like with 20 teams and, if you draw a game, it's a good result. And we'd draw against St Mirren at home or something like that. And he'd be quite happy with that, whereas that wasn't the standards that Aberdeen had at the time, even though the team, players were moving on and they weren't as successful as they are, but there was still expectations with the supporters. But I don't think it mattered who came in after that. It's a bit like, even now at Manchester United, they're still finding it hard to get over Fergie. So I think that's a hard part. But I always got on well with him. The one thing that I remember about him was, I think it was the first League Cup final when we lost in penalty kicks. I played in the semi-final, but I couldn't play in the final because I broke my foot.
Yeah.
So I was obviously pretty down. We lost anyway, but Ian Porterfield gave me his medal.
Oh, really?
It's a bit of compensation. So, it's fantastic that he did it. And, obviously Ian's passed away now. So it's obviously, it's sad. But I always got on okay with him and he was a fun guy and, things were always fun around him.
Brilliant. Charlie Nicholas comes in as well.
Yeah.
What was your favourite stories with him?
Well, Charlie was, in Aberdeen, there's no film stars. He's as close to a film star as there is. And I remember you go in nightclubs and, everybody's flocking around Charlie as if it's a Hollywood superstar that's come in. But no, he was just, a lot of people say he's, a lot of people have got things to say about him, but I always liked him. He always encouraged me and I was always a quiet kind of guy. But, he was just, he's one of those guys that you always look up to. You sort of idolise him a little bit. And I think, to be honest with you, I don't think anybody in Aberdeen could believe that, a superstar from Arsenal signed for Aberdeen. But that was Ian Porterfield that did that. But no, there's not a lot of stories about him, but he's a great guy. I just remember in Aberdeen that, whatever pub that Charlie was in, the whole Aberdeen was in that pub.
Brilliant. I mean, obviously, the season after that, Ian Porterfield resigns and Alex Smith and Jockey Scott come in to take over. How tough were they with you, and do you feel they kind of a good kind of benefit towards your career?
No, I'd known Alec in the youth teams in Scotland. He helped with it. I think he took under 18s and under 16s. So I knew Alec from before that, and he was very good at promoting youth. Obviously, brought Ian Jess into the team and Stephen Wright, Scott Booth. He wasn't scared to put the young players in, and he was very, very good with the young players. And then you had Jockey that was when you think about it, Jockey actually played in the same team as Willie Miller. And Jockey was a great player in his day. He was good with the older players. He'd be the grumpy one, the bad one, and would always have a go at players. And he wouldn't be slow and standing up to a Charlie Nicholas or a Jim Bett or a Willie Miller. He wasn't scared that way. So they both worked well together, even though they were co-managers. I think Alex Smith was the manager more than anything. But it was funny when we went to Holland one time for pre-season, and I'll never forget, they fell out with each other. So at dinner time, they were sitting at a different table to each other, and like the physio Davy Wiley didn't know what table to sit at, and if you wanted to ask a question to Jockey, he would say ask a gaffer, or you could ask Alex Smith, ask Jockey. So it only didn't last for long, but it was just a weird thing. But I do feel that the some managers after Alec Ferguson, like Porterfield, even though he got to a cup final and he won, I think he got to 2 cup finals, I think it was. I'm not sure what it was. And he always finished in the top 2 or 3 as well. She was unfortunate, and then Alex Smith came in, did well, got sacked, and Willie Miller probably did better than a lot of them. Just the fact that the Rangers team I was in was so good, and he got let go as well. So I think it's always hard at Aberdeen, but Alex Smith was good. He took a big gamble putting in Ian Jess in the League Cup final, and I think it was his first or second game, and no one knew until an hour and a half before the game that he was starting, and he went in, and I do feel that he was the deciding factor that we won that, because I don't think the Rangers expected him to play.
How good was that to finally get that the cup final win against Rangers? You played, that was the 3rd season in a row you played against them in the cup final. How good was that to get the win? You won 2-1. Just what were your memories of that game?
Yeah, no, it's the first major trophy I won, and I think it was extra special because one, you go down the Union Street and open top bus, which you can't do in many cities, and I remember going to watch Aberdeen as a kid, and here's me, on the top of the bus, and it was a great feeling, and going down Union Street where I grew up. You see a lot of people that familiar faces waving, and so that made you feel good. But I think as well that the year before that, when I played in the cup final, we lost. I think it was 3-2. We lost. I think Ian Ferguson might have scored the winner, and I had an absolute nightmare that game. I don't know what it was. I just probably one of the worst games of my life, and I think that made it better because, as I said before, I always doubt myself, and I think the fact that I redeemed myself in the next game showed to myself that I can do it on the big stage in the cup final. But it was a fantastic time, and obviously I had a hand in. I think it was the winning goal. Paul Mason's one when a long throw in. I think it was Charlie Nicholas or someone that flicked it on, and Paul Mason scored. So great memories. I think the open top bus was just the pinnacle for me.
Brilliant. That same season as well, you won the double. You won the Scottish Cup against Celtic. You scored in the shootout. They won 9-8 in penalties. Would you say that was the most nervous you'd ever been, that penalty shootout?
Well, no, not really. I mean, it was the most horrendous game ever, and I think both teams could have played and could still be playing now and never scored. It was just the pitch was horrible. It was hot. It was just a horrible day. And I remember just before the end of the normal time, Mike Galloway gives me a dead leg, so I could hardly walk. And then you go into penalty kicks, and you think to yourself, well, there's no way I'm going to be going into this. There's no way in a million years I'm going to be taking a penalty kick, because there was something like, ended up being about the 7th or 8th. And you always think it's going to be done after the first 5. So I'm just standing there, and my leg's seizing up. It's getting worse and worse. And eventually nobody's missing, or it was all even. And then I look along and I see Graham Watson, who's 18. I'm thinking, gee, I need to step up here. I can't let him go before me. So I go and I walk, and I forgot about my thigh, and honestly I could hardly walk. I'm walking up and I'm thinking, gee, I can't even run. So I put the ball down, and everybody says to me, "Oh, it was such a cool penalty kick because you took 2 steps," but that's all I could because I could hardly move. And I tried to put it to Pat Bonner's right, and he actually went that way and actually mishit it and it went straight in the middle. And I think it was funny. I wasn't really nervous. I was lucky that I scored, but I wasn't nervous because I felt that, I'll be lucky if I can even take a penalty kick because I was injured and I didn't expect it. So I wasn't really particularly nervous. It was just a case you go up there and I did think to myself, right, I've got no idea what I'm going to do here because I wasn't planned. I didn't expect to take a penalty kick. And as I say, if I hit the ball through, Celtic would have won the cup.
Brilliant. You mentioned earlier about Ian Jess. Just how good did you think he would become?
Well, I actually watched it was his birthday the other day, and I actually some compilation of goals I saw on I can't know what it was, Facebook or Twitter or something. And honestly, the goals, the quality of goals he scored, and it wasn't against. He scored a lot of goals against Rangers and Celtic, and I remember one game in particular we played Dunfermline and he scored a hat trick, but the quality of each goal was just incredible.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not saying he was very, very good, but I think he probably could have gone and played at a higher level. I don't know why he didn't, but I think he could have played at the top level. I think he was that good.
Mm-hmm. And the last season you had at Aberdeen obviously was the season you challenged Rangers really close to the title. It came to a last day decider. You went on a 12-game unbeaten run before that game at Ibrox. Were you confident that you could upset Rangers?
Yeah, I think what the biggest problem that we had at that point was, going into the second last game, I think we played St Johnstone at home. We won 2-1, and I think Motherwell beat Rangers, I think they were losing. They were beating them 2-1 or 2-0 or something. And our game, for some reason, our game finished. We were in the dressing room, and the way the scores were, it would mean that we'd have to go to Ibrox to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we came in the dressing room, Motherwell scored another goal, which meant we would have to draw at the worst draw and win the league. And I think that was the biggest problem we had, because it's always in the back of your mind, a draw. Because you go to Ibrox, it's very difficult to win. But I think if you have to go there and win, you've got more chance of doing it, knowing that, if you know the back of your mind, you've got a draw coming up, you're going to struggle. And on the day, we just froze. It just didn't happen. Theo Snelders didn't play that day. So it was just, and I think the atmosphere the whole day, going to Ibrox is such a intimidating place anyway, particularly on a day like that. And, we didn't have a regular goalkeeper. Even though things were in our favour, you just had a feeling before the game it wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And obviously that was your last game for Aberdeen. Like, how do you look back now? Your spell at Aberdeen, was it one of the best times of your life?
Well, it is. I mean, obviously you played for your boyhood club. I remember when I signed for Aberdeen and I got my first game. I don't care what happens now. I've played for Aberdeen, and it's a dream come true. It's like every kid, you get to play in the stadium. You go and watch your heroes play, but I think the main thing for me was that I played with the players that I used to idolise. Willie Miller, McLeish, McKinney. Billy Stark was there. I mean, you could go through the whole team. John Hewitt. I was very, very fortunate to play with those guys, and but I think more than anything, just to play from a local team and to say that I played for the club I used to go and watch every week.
Brilliant. When did you first hear that Rangers were looking at you? Was there any other clubs that were interested in you?
Yeah, there was a few. I think that's the year my contract was up. There was, I think it was Aston Villa, Sheffield United, Rangers. But the years before that, there was Liverpool, there was Manchester United, there was Coventry and Tottenham, Arsenal. A lot of the big guns. Even I think it was Bordeaux. I think in France. So there was a lot of clubs interested. But when my contract came, there was the 3 clubs that came, but I knew probably 2 weeks before my last game for Aberdeen that I was going to be going to Rangers. I remember we'd sort of verbally agreed to go. My agent with Graham Souness had agreed to go, and I remember we're in the minibus at Pittodrie going to Seaton Park to train with all the Aberdeen players, and I remember driving back and the radio was on and says breaking news from Ibrox, Graham Souness had left Rangers and gone to Liverpool. Mm-hmm. And all the Aberdeen players are jumping about, and you can imagine what they were saying. And I'm sitting in the bus thinking, oh no, what's going to happen now? But to be fair, Walter Smith, they were true to their word. They kept it, and as I say, it all got completed. But I knew probably a week or so before that last game that I was going to go to Rangers. So obviously it's nerve wracking. Obviously I was pretty quiet in those days and shy, and and Aberdonians are very reserved people, and you're sort of leaving your home city probably for the first time to go to Glasgow, where you've got the Rangers Celtic thing and everything. I felt you're very, very nervous, but it's something you can't turn down.
Yeah, definitely. What were your family's thoughts when you made the move to Rangers?
Well, my wife, she supports everything. We'd been married about a year or so. We'd been dating for about 4 or 5 years before that, so she knew what it was all about for me, kind of thing. But my dad and my brother, my brother's 12 years younger. They were obviously Aberdeen supporters, and my brothers are still a very a strong Aberdeen supporter. He lives in Elgin, and he'll drive to Pittodrie and all over to watch Aberdeen. So I found it was very, very difficult for them. My brother got bullied at school because he was still at primary school when I left to go to Rangers. And my dad, I think he found it hard. He came and watched Rangers play because it was his son playing, but I think he found it hard that I'd gone away to another club. I'm not saying he was disappointed, but I think he hoped that I'd gone to a different club. But I think the biggest compliment I could ever get is a year later he told me it's the best thing I've ever done. So that meant a lot to me. But no, I didn't realise at the time that it would have an impact on, particularly my brother.
And when obviously Walter Smith was the manager, he got the job after Souness, but Archie Knox was there as well, and obviously you were reunited with him. Just what was your first impression of getting in there with Walter and Archie?
It was good. I remember the first day I goes in, and you go in at Pittodrie, you go in the side door, all the players quietly go in the side door and what have you. At Rangers, you go in the main doors, and there's a commissioner there, Stan, then Jimmy Bell takes you in, and you walk into the Ibrox dressing room and you see Haitley, McCoist, Gough, Gary Stevens, Trevor Stephen, and you think to yourself, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. And then Jimmy Bell says to me, he says, "You got a tough, you got big shoes to fill." And I goes, "All right." He goes, "Yeah, this is your number here, number 6." It was like they didn't have playing numbers; it was like training number. So I was number 6, and he says, "That's Terry Butcher's." And I thought, oh my God. So then, you sit down in your place, and I'm in between Richard Gough and Ian Ferguson, and I'm close to the noisy corner with Durant and McCoist and Ian Ferguson and Haitley. And but to be fair, they made me feel very, very welcome. But you go in there and you're so intimidated. And like I said before, I didn't sort of have a lot of belief in myself as a player. And I did really, really doubt myself the day I walked in there.
And when you made your debut against St Johnstone, just like what was your memories of that first season? Obviously, that first season, like Andy Gorham, Stuart McCall, and that came in as well. And is that it's more? Would you say it was a kind of 3 foreigners rule? Was the reason like a lot of Scots get signed that season?
Yeah, I know that's one of the reasons I was signed, and I think as years went on, I'm under no illusions that's why I was signed at the start. But I think as time went on, obviously that relaxed, and it showed that I must have been a decent player because they could have signed anyone they wanted. But no, the team was fantastic. The team that he built was great. We didn't go off to the greatest start. I think we knocked out us to the Champions League to Sparta Prague. Lost to, I think it was Hearts, beat us away. So we didn't start off well, but it ended up good with the league, the first league championship, and then the Scottish Cup against Airdrie. So it was a very, very good start. But the first game I felt was that the pitch was just massive. I'd played at Ibrox before, but when you're actually playing there, and obviously the crowd, and I was very fortunate that the crowd, took to me, and they never once gave me any stick or any hassle. I think because I was full-blooded and I'd give everything I have for the jersey, and I think they appreciated that. But I do think if I got on the wrong side of them, I could have folded pretty easily.
The 92-93 seasons, obviously the famous one was a run in Europe. Just a couple of games I want to kind of mention first of all. The game against Leeds, just what was the atmosphere and getting into that game?
Yeah, well, obviously there was no away fans supposed to be allowed in, and I remember the game at Ibrox. I don't know why, but I was told to Mark Lee Chapman that he was like the Jolly Green giant, and I'm only 5'11". But anyway, the ball came in. I remember it, and I had a great clearance, great header out to the edge of the box, and McAllister volleyed it into the roof and net. And I thought, oh my God, here we go. And I did think, because before the game it was, the English league's far better than the Scottish league, and you go a goal down the first couple of minutes, you do think that's it. But then, the Rangers supporters got behind us. We came back and won 2-1. But I think Elland Road was, it was really a memorable night. Archie with all the newspaper clippings that even in England are, 2-1's not enough. Leeds will win. Leeds will be in the Champions League. So all these things were pinned up on the board and what have you. And we're all wound up and we go down there and, it's probably the best display. Okay, as a team, but I think Andy Gorham was fantastic that night. Definitely. And then Haitley sort of scored the same as what McAllister did, a wonder goal in the first few minutes. It puts you 3-1 up, so it gives you a bit of breathing space. But I mean, obviously Cantona, I think Rod Wallace was there, Strachan, Batty, the late Gary Speed, just so many big names there, and we hung on, and then we nipped one again at the end, and it was. It was also a bit like sort of against all odds. And I remember actually when we came off, because there were no Rangers fans there, we actually got applauded off by Leeds United, which was an amazing thing to happen. And obviously we had a night out that night. I think it was in Manchester or something. So we all enjoyed that. And I think every Rangers player had Rangers supporters sleeping on their floors in their hotel room. A couple of tracksuits went missing and stuff, but it was a great experience.
Brilliant. And obviously that the night at Elland Road did Sir Alex come into the dressing room?
Yeah, he did. He came. I think it was before the game or after. I think it was before the game to wish everybody good luck. And I remember the Elland Road in those days. The toilet for the away dressing room was out the dressing room and along the corridor. It wasn't even in the dressing room. Right. Obviously, it's a bit of intimidation. Must have been the Billy Bremner and the Don Revie era that all that grind games come in. But it was amazing that Alec Ferguson came in and wished everybody good luck, and I think he was in it after the game as well. But it was just great, and I think it was just a group of players that we had. I just felt that you could achieve anything. No one was big-headed or full of it. We just had that, and I don't think we were particularly the greatest individual team, because in those days we didn't have Laudrup or Gascoigne. Yeah. We were just very workmanlike and just had a big heart, and I think that's what helped us. And that night, we had to hang on for grim death for long spells in that game. And as I say, Andy Gorham is just, fantastic. Probably he is the best goalkeeper I've ever played with for sure.
Brilliant. That's getting into the Champions League. Obviously, you were in the group of Marseille, CSK Moscow, and Club Brugge. Were you confident get into that group?
I don't think anybody ever mentioned how we were going to go. I think the Rangers was a case of just take one game at a time, and it's more of we're playing against Marseille, like this big experience. Rudi Voller, Alan Boksic, Didier Deschamps, all these guys playing for Marseille, and I don't think it was a case of we're going to beat them. You just go and play the game, and we went 2-0 down, and I'm not saying it was expected, and you thought, oh well, this is a bit of a disaster here. And then again, Rangers supporters get behind, make a couple of substitutions, Big Haitley scores and McSwiggan scores. And remember that game, I think Stephen Presley was maybe 18 at the time, and McSwiggan came on, and you're playing against them, probably they won it that year, but you're talking about playing some world class players, and you're all but out, and then you come back with a bunch of young kids and get a pretty good comeback. And I think that gave us a big bit of belief that night.
Yeah, obviously the run, you go unbeaten, but the game I want to touch on was the game against Marseille at the Velodrome. Just what was the atmosphere like at that? Was that kind of one of the best?
It was incredible. I mean, it was all firecrackers and the noise, and I remember the tunnel seemed to be like it must have been about 5 miles long to get out. And then when you get out, it's really, really intimidating. And I remember the grass being long for some reason. I don't know why the grass was long. And I mean, the atmosphere was incredible. Probably not the greatest night for me. I pulled my hamstring, and then I misplaced a clearance or pass or whatever I was doing. And I think it was Frank Soze scored, or he scored. So that put end to it. But, you know, I think on the night, I think we could have, you know, won the game.
Mm-hmm. And that, obviously, we look back now, and obviously Marseille, we know what happened there. But do you look back now with kind of a better taste in your mouth at how it went down? Like,
no, I've been asked that a lot, and I think no one really thought anything about it because it was past, and I think we did pretty well as far as we got in the season that we had, you know, the treble, and I think we went 44 games unbeaten. Just a memorable season, and yeah, it would have been nice to have, you know, got to the final and had a crack at that. But, you know, I think I'm not saying satisfied, but I'm more than satisfied of that season to be a part of it. And I think I was one of the players that played, you know, probably the most games that season as well, which says a lot for me. And but no, I just think it was a fantastic season, and you know, we did carry a bit of luck, I've got to admit. You know, you had 2-0 down against Marseille, and you come back 2 each, and then, you know, you get Nizzy's goal, which came down with snow on it. So there was a lot bit of luck as well, and you know, maybe our luck ran out, I don't know, but it was just a fantastic season. Great to be a part of that.
Yeah, a domestic treble as well. Would you say that was the best season in your career? What was the kind of memories for the domestic season?
Well, I think I mean, I always go back to like Willie Miller. I've met him once or twice since I've been back in Aberdeen, but you know, growing up, he was a hero of mine. But then when you play with him in the side, he's grumpy as anything, and he'd blame me for his bad passes and all sorts of stuff. And you're so young and quiet that you just take it and say, oh, you actually apologise for his bad pass. So I remember he was the manager of Aberdeen at the time, and Aberdeen had a fantastic season, and I think they'd enough points in the league any other season to win it. But obviously they were second in the league to us. We beat them in the Scottish League Cup 2-1. They were second in that as well. And then, you know, when you think about a Rangers player going for the treble against your old team, the manager's the guy that used to slaughter you all the time. The game's played at Parkhead. You're in the Celtic home dressing room and you win the treble. I don't think it gets any better than that.
Definitely. How good was the camaraderie in that team, and what was the kind of best stories you remember for that season?
I just think that, I mean, I was quite young, particularly the first season. I was still 21, 22. A lot of the players are a lot older than me. But I just used to have, you know, nights out, and it would end up being a day out. You know, you leave after training at 12 o'clock and you go out and, you know, last man standing kind of thing. But it was just that, you know, and it was so much fun. I was quite quiet and what have you. But, you know, you see like the McCoys and everything. But the one guy I used to laugh at was absolutely brilliant, was Ian Ferguson. He changed next to me, but I lived 2 doors down from him. I bought a house next. He actually conned me into buying a house 2 doors down, I think. So he got his driveway done. I got a new driveway when I bought the house. But what he would do was, sometimes I'd go in the car with him or he'd come with me, and he had this thing about magpies. You know, one for sorry, two for joy. And he'd be in his car, we're driving to Ibrox, and he'd go, "Bastard!" He says, "What's that?" He says, "Oh, a magpie." And he'd keep driving and driving till he saw another one. He was just, and he's superstitious as anything. You know, obviously that's part of his superstition. And I remember one day he had this thing when he says, I sat next to him for I don't know how long it took me before I asked him, because he had this thing of putting his socks and shoes on before he put his trousers on. And I says, "What's the reason you do that?" And he says, "Well, if there's a fire, I'm out of here." So, but no, there's just so many stories with the team, and but it's day to day, and it's just banter. You know, you used to come in, you know, you come in with it was like collar and tie in those days.
Yeah,
you had to wear a suit and a collar and tie, and you'd maybe come in with some dodgy stuff, something that didn't match and everything, and you know, McCoy or someone would ask if you'd been dressed in the dark, or they'd say, "What's your missus wearing?" You know, all that stuff. So, never a dull moment.
Brilliant. The following season, the 93-94, you won the League Cup in the league. In the cup final, the Scottish Cup final, you were going for back-to-back trebles against Dundee United. How sore was that to lose that game?
I think that season a lot of injuries were catching up with a lot of people, and we sort of limped over the finishing line with winning the league. But I think the game against Dundee United, it's a bit like the game I played the cup final when I was at Aberdeen and we beat Celtic in penalty kicks. Was that we could have played all day and never scored. It was just one of those days. And obviously it was a mix-up for the goal just after half-time and Craig Brewster scored. But it was, I think, if no disrespect to Dundee United, but I think if we played Celtic or Aberdeen or something, we might have had the energy or the firepower to do it. But I just think it was a game too many for us, and it was flat. And I'm not saying nobody was up for the game, just a very, very difficult game. And but when you look back, I think you talk about disappointments. That is a disappointment that we didn't, manage to win that game, because back-to-back trebles would have been pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. The following season, Brian Laudrup comes in. When did you first realise that this player was world class?
Well, actually, his first game was against Clyde in a pre-season game at Broadwood, and there was all this hype about this Brian Laudrup coming in, and I'm playing behind him, and I walk in at half time, and I think I don't know what the hype is about this guy. I don't think he's that great. And it turns out that it was me that was hopeless. He was playing passes. Oh, that's where I should be. And it was just a different level. Once I ended up having a good playing relationship with him, and I think it's just because I understood how he played, and he made it easy for me, the game. But at the early part, but I used to admire what he did, even in training. I remember one time in a game, I don't know how many times he turned Alan Dinney at Partick up. He was up, he was down, he was up, he was down. And Alan Dinney must have been thinking, for God's sake, just cross the ball and know you. Because the man was just a genius.
Mm-hmm. And that season, that 94-95 season was interesting. You did the defeat to AAK Athens in the Champions League and the defeat to Falkirk in the League Cup. Did you feel there was a bit of pressure? Like, obviously Walter was under a bit of pressure then for his European runs and things like that. Did you feel that pressure? No,
it's funny you say that, because I think that was when I realised what a good man manager Walter Smith was.
Yeah.
There might have been some stuff in the newspapers and some speculation that, he may be getting on his way out. But all the players loved him and we'd do anything for them. But I think what he did was, it was almost like in the 6 years I was there with him, he was the same all the time. Good times, bad times. He would never change his personality. He would never change anything. And it was almost like he was, he kept the pressure away from the players. You wouldn't think that we'd lost those games and not, but I think Falkirk beat us in the cup at the same time. And I don't think anybody would believe inside the dressing room that we're going through such a bad spell. He just kept it away. And I think the man was a genius, I think, that he managed to do that, because, being the manager of Rangers can't be easy, the pressure that they're on. You look at Neil Lennon at the moment, last year he was a hero, and now he's obviously, things aren't going well, and supporters are on top of him, and I think Walter Smith must have been going through that as well, but he never ever showed it, and he kept it all away from the players. It was tremendous.
Mm-hmm. And that season you won the league relatively easy again, but you played 28 games. Did you feel kind of fat and like you were still kind of a very important player on the team?
No, I did. Yeah, I was. I think injuries were going to creep up with me a little bit, to be honest. The last 2 or 3 years, I was beginning to, knee injuries and hamstrings and all sorts of things. And I would just, I think, to be honest with you, I don't think I ever played a lot of the games at Rangers 100% fit. I'd play with knocks, and I had a fitness test in the morning, knees are all swollen, and I had a couple of injections as well to play. But that's just me, because I knew that as soon as I missed games, there's a good chance they'll bring somebody else in, because they had the money, and the club was the way the club was, that we could attract the big names in world football. So I just kept playing, and obviously for the detriment of my career, it wasn't the best thing to do. But I just would do anything to put that jersey on week in, week out, and I think as I say, I think all that and the amount of games that I've been playing, it began to take its toll on me.
Mm-hmm. In 95, 96, one player comes in, Paul Gascoigne. Just what was it like?
Well, he's just the man on the pitch is a genius. But I must admit, because he was right-footed, he always tended to go to the right-hand side, and he never really sort of came to the left-hand side. So he'd almost pretend that he was going to give me a pass and then turn and go the opposite way. I think in the 3 years he was there, he might have passed to me about 5 times in the game. But no, he was an absolute genius, and you saw him in the dressing room. He was actually nervous when he first came in. Believe it or not, he was a bit probably like what I was, nervous going into that dressing room. So you go in, I think he hid in the toilet the first bit. But I remember one time he comes in and he had his teeth. Ian Durrant used to slaughter his teeth because he had his little sort of worn down teeth, and used to call him the fresher mouth. So and he went away and he came in at training one day and he came in and his teeth were like Jonathan watching that Frank McAvenny. They're like 5 sizes too big, and I know you can imagine the stick all the boys gave him. I think Walter told him to go and get a couple inches filed off them. I'm not sure, but no, he was such a great guy. On the bus, coming back from Aberdeen or Hearts or Dundee or something. Often he would sit next to me, and and you could tell that he was just a good guy, and but he knew he had a hard life because he was under the microscope all the time. People was getting followed, and some of the things he used to tell me, I used to feel so bad for him. Everybody wants to be Paul Gascoigne, the type of player he is, the fame, but I think he had I don't think people realise what a hard life he had, living in that goldfish bowl.
Yeah, definitely. See, just while we're on it as well, you played 3 times for Scotland. Is that a kind of big regret that you didn't play more for them?
No, I'm just glad because I played for Scotland at every level. Youths and under 21s and B international, and obviously the main team. But I think a lot of people say that I've got issues with Craig Brown and stuff. I don't particularly have issues with it. The issue I had at the time was that I was going to away in these Scotland trips. I was in a lot of the squads, but I knew if Tom Boyd was fit, I wasn't going to play. So you're there, you're sitting about in a hotel, you're not going to be playing, you're not training as much as you can. And then, like I said before, I wasn't the most confident player anyway. You go back to Rangers and your confidence is a bit dashed. So, I eventually, after a while, I was in a lot of squads, but I knew I just wasn't going to play. I think I played against Switzerland at Pittodrie. I got called in at the last minute because Tom Boyd was injured, and I played well that night. And I played a ball through for John Collins to score. And then after that, I was like, maybe third choice left back after that. And I just sort of thought, for my own good, I need to, sort of call it a day kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, like Craig Brown, for example, up until Steve Clark he was the guy that was last Scotland manager to get the country to a major championship. So, I certainly have got no hard feelings or anything. If I was asked, would I change anything in my career for more Scotland caps, I certainly wouldn't.
Definitely. That season, the 95-96, was a very tough season for Rangers. Obviously, Celtic kind of got resurgent and didn't give up that season. Just how tough was that season for you? Yeah,
as I say, I think the more I always found the championships, the first couple of times you win, it's fantastic, particularly the first one. But after that, it becomes a relief. It becomes a grind, because that the Rangers, you have to keep winning and winning, and obviously Celtic are coming back all the time, and again, going about fantastic players at Rangers, Laudrup and Gascoigne, but again, Andy Gorham, I don't know how many times he saved us, but again, obviously that's what a goalkeeper's there for. A lot of people going about Hateley, McCoist and Goffey and all those guys, but I think Andy Gorham he's probably one of the main. In the 6 years I was there, certainly one of the main players, if not the main player. But Celtic, as I say, I think a lot of the times, a little bit like the first half of up until the sending off at the weekend there, Celtic almost dominated. Andy Gorham, the back four defending well, and then you've got somebody like Ali McCoist or Haitley can pop up with a goal.
Yeah.
So I think that was. I don't think any Celtic game that I ever played in, we ever dominated it, but we won our fair share.
Definitely. The season, you are going for 8 in a row that season in the game against Aberdeen at Ibrox, where I would say Gazza is it's the best, one of the best games you'll ever see from a player. What was the thoughts of that game? Just how good was that to win 8 in a row?
I think that was the time when you think, God, we're not far away from 9. I think for me, it's probably the first time you realise. And then obviously you're playing against my old team. I used to get a lot of stick when I went to Pittodrie and all sorts of stuff. Even when I'm back visiting, I used to get a lot of. My family got a bit of stick, so it's always extra special then to beat Aberdeen. And I think Aberdeen went a goal up early on, and you think, oh God, this is going to be a disastrous day. But I think everybody goes on about Gazza's second goal, but I think his first one was just as good.
Yeah, definitely.
He just. It was almost like, I think the Rangers, and all the time that I was there, the first 2 or 3 years, it was workmanlike, it was a grind with a team of winners. And I think a lot of teams realised that, and I'm not saying they got to grips with how we played, but then you bring in a Gazza and a Laudrup, and you've just got match winners. They can just do anything. So you've got Andy Gorham at one end, and then you've got those 2 players that can win a game on their own. And that day, I think if it wasn't obviously Gazza, Laudrup, these guys, if we didn't have those kind of stars, I think it might not have been 8 in a row. I think, but as I say, that the first goal was just incredible. I think Alan McLaren gave Gazza a G up just before he scored his second one.
And obviously, the week you won 8 in a row, and the week after that was the famous Scottish Cup final where Gordon Durie scores a hat trick, and it's called the Laudrup final. Just what was that game like as well? He's won 5-1.
It's probably the only cup final that I've never wanted to end. Normally, you're sort of hanging on at the end at 2-1 or 1-0. But that game, the game was won pretty early on, and everybody just enjoyed it. And I think it was a time when Laudrup was keeping the ball up in the air and back heeling it and all sorts of stuff. And I just felt that I just never wanted that game to end, because it was almost like the perfect game. You can just enjoy it, enjoy the the occasion and what have you. But it's Gordon Durie. I think Durie got a hat trick that day, didn't he? And but just so many great performances that day. And to win such heavily, or to win such a high margin, the final was just incredible. But as I say, I think it was just fitting to the team that we had then.
You're going your last season. You were still only 27. Did you feel at that time you could have been at Rangers for the rest of your career?
Yeah, but I think there was a lot of injuries. As I say, my knee, my back. I was, because I'd been playing constant since I was 17. At high levels.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not saying my body was big enough to sort of pack in a bit, but I thought that year, I think if I'd stayed another 4 years, I could have got a testimonial. But I felt as well, I just had this feeling around about halfway through that season, even if we got 9 in a row, we didn't, that Walter at some point was going to move on. And I thought to myself, well, I've been playing in Scotland for 10, 12 years or something. It was 10 years, maybe longer. And you're playing against the same players, the same teams 4 times a year. And I felt that if I wanted a change, I'd have to do it now, otherwise it'd be too late. But one of the reasons was I had a feeling that at some point Walter would go, and I didn't want to be at Rangers, because if someone else came in, I was sort of coming to the end of my career as well. If someone else came in, didn't fancy me, I would hate to be in the reserves and sort of fizzle out. I obviously went out in a high at Rangers, which was good. But I go to Leeds, and quickly, within a month or so, I wished I was still back at Rangers.
Yeah, that last season as well, it was another disappointing Champions League campaign. Did you feel that was kind of like your biggest regret of your Rangers career, that you didn't perform well enough to a high level in Europe when you the players to kind of do so?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know what it is, but I do feel in Scotland at that time it was very, very. I remember one season we played in Turin against Juventus.
Yeah.
You know, all these superstars, and then you fly back and you're playing at Firhill on the Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like two ends of the spectrum, and I think it's very hard to go from playing those kind of games to playing against the best teams in the world. You know, and obviously there's a lot more games now in Europe than it was then. It was, and I think a lot of it was going from, you know, playing, you know, no disrespect to sort of the teams in Scotland, to then going and playing against the big, you know, having to raise your game against superstars more than anything.
Yeah.
And maybe we didn't. Maybe we tried to play the same way, and maybe should have been a little bit more cautious. I'm not sure, but you know, we had the players. You know, you got guys that played in World Cups, European Championships. You know, you go them. You could just go down the whole thing, and you could say it's disappointing. But you can see how they are now. Gerrard's certainly got them going, and I think his experience at Liverpool certainly paid off. But as I say, it's the time I had at Rangers was incredible, and you know, never sort of forget any of it.
Definitely. How big a pressure was it for you to get the 9 in a row?
I think it was like business as usual more than anything, and it wasn't until we got close to the end. I think the biggest was we played Motherwell, and we thought that was going to be it. You know, the final day, final home game, and we're going to get the t-shirts were printed, the nights out were organised, and it was just a massive anti-climax. And then you look after that and you think, gee, we've got to go to Tannadice, and I always found Tannadice the hardest place to go and get a win. And then obviously after that, Tynecastle. So it's like you think to yourself, well, no disrespect to Motherwell, but you know, that's the game you're going to win. It didn't happen. Owen Coyle, I think, scored a couple of goals, and you know, suddenly you're going to Tannadice in the midweek, and you know, that was a real pressure game. I think it was good that we knew we had another chance if we didn't do it that night. But you know, as I say, we just ground it out at Tannadice because it's a horrible place to go and play.
Yeah. How big were the Old Firm games that season? Do you remember the game at Parkhead was, I think, did Haley come back that season, didn't he? It was like Andy Double and Nets. What was that game like?
I actually believe it. I think I was injured. I pulled my hamstring, or maybe I was suspended. I'm not sure. So I missed that game. But I remember we couldn't even go to the game, tickets, and you know, sometimes it's not the safest place to go. So I remember watching it at home on TV, and you know, and again, I think, you know, Walter Smith management, you know, okay, Haley was probably past his best by then, but the fact that you brought him back for that game, okay, he got sent off, but I think that day, Walter's decision to bring him back, you know, won us that game.
Definitely. You talked about that game at Tannadice. Just what was the feeling like after you had won it? Obviously, Charlie Miller scored with his Crosby's left foot, and Laudrup scored a header. Could it have been more?
Yeah. Well, exactly, but people forget that there was I threw the ball to Charlie Miller, so I get this second assist. But no, as I say, a left foot crossing it, a Laudrup header. You know, it just shows you it was meant to be. But after the game, it was incredible. I remember Richard Gough in tears. It was his. Okay, he didn't play that night, but it was his last time in a rain. Well, it turned out it wasn't, but it was for that point. Obviously, that was emotional for him, and it turned out obviously it was my last game for Rangers as well. I think my biggest regret really was not going back on the bus and celebrating, because I think, you know, I was told Gazza went back with his full kit on, and I think they were stopped at pubs and he was in with his old kit on, and you know, it was obviously I heard it was a fantastic night out, but you know, I decided to, you know, go back. My wife was at the game, so I went back in the car with her, and you know, I didn't realise I don't actually think I realised how big 9 in a row was until maybe, you know, the next day or the day after that, what an achievement it was. Because I was always a person that just sort of, you know, keep an eye on the next game, because, you know, it might be my last. You know, Rangers, I could get injured, Rangers could sign somebody else, so I never looked too far ahead. But that is a big regret that I didn't go back on the team bus that night. Yeah,
you touched on as well. Obviously, you wanted to try a different league. Like, was that the kind of big reason you decided to move on, or were injuries playing a part as well?
It wasn't as much injuries because the move to Leeds almost didn't happen because I had a knee injury that I didn't know about. But no, I just felt that, it was weird that, all throughout my career, the beginning or halfway through that 9-in-a-row season, I almost went to Inter Milan.
Right.
It was all agreed between the two clubs, and I had agreed personal terms, and I was all set to go. But Roy Hodgson got sacked, and that sort of stopped. And then after that, there was all these clubs came in. Atletico Madrid came in, Valencia, a couple of Italian teams. They all came in, and I was tempted to go, but George Graham seemed to be very, very persistent to take me to Elland Road, and I met him a couple of times, and always a very, very persuasive guy, and financially it was a good move, and then we took the chance, but then when I got there, I had to get everything was agreed and done and dusted, and I had to get a medical, and then after the scan, they told me that I had no cruciate ligament. And I didn't realise that all the medical records going back to Rangers, I'd been playing without one for about 5 years, and I didn't know. And then as soon as I knew, I developed started to limp, even though I'd managed to play, hundreds of games. And then it was always in the back of my mind, and I felt probably at Leeds United, I was only ever 70% fit. And then when you go to, I remember my first game was Arsenal at Elland Road against, Overmars and Ray Parlour and Ian Wright, all those guys, and you just realise that, I'm not saying it's a different level, but everybody's fast. A big part of my game was speed, but everybody was fast. You needed something more about you to be successful there. But the problem I had was that as soon as I knew about the injury, I was only 70% fit, and obviously mentally it was always in my mind.
Yeah. Just before we touch on Leeds, just obviously you won 12 trophies in your 6 years at Ibrox. Just sum up like your experience there and the friendships you had with the players. Just how good was that time in your life?
I think I look at a lot of players that have gone to Rangers, and I'm no different to any of them. Some of them have been there for 6 months, some of them for 10 years. But it's almost like if you've only been there a month, it's your club. It sort of changes your life. It just gives you that, I don't know, it's just an outlook in football. And I think it's the supporters, how well you're looked after. Don't get me wrong, I had a very, very successful time there. But I feel myself that I loved every minute of it. I wish I could do it again. But the one thing I feel that I was very, very fortunate and lucky to have had the privilege of playing there for that length of time.
Brilliant. You move on to Leeds, as you said. George Graham, what was your first impressions of him?
No, he was great. He sold me on Leeds. Pre-season was fantastic. I played pretty really well in pre-season, even though I knew the back of my mind about the injury. And I played the first few games, and played well against. First game was Arsenal, and I think we beat Newcastle, we beat Manchester United at Elland Road, and then suddenly he decided that he wanted me to change the way I defended and played, and I tried to change that way, and I couldn't do it. I was 28 at the time. Very, very difficult to change the way I was. Even the training was different. I was used to, how we did things at Rangers, and suddenly you're training twice a day. A hard session on a Friday, whereas on a Friday normally it was easy, and I just felt so lethargic. Plus the problems with my knee, I just felt really, really sort of not at my best, not at my sharpest. And in a league like that, you have to be at your 100% best. But it was a great experience, and it all came to an end when I went for a header against Leicester at Filbert Street, and I came down and my knee just gave way, and that was the beginning of the end, really.
Mm-hmm. And obviously when you went into Leeds, there was some good players there, like David Hopkins, Rod Wallace, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Harry Kewell. Who impressed you when you were there?
Harry Kewell was something else. I mean, he was only 18. He came in, he was around about the same. He was a younger kid, but he was fantastic. But Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank for me is, McCoist and Haley are great, but I think Hasselbank for me is, I've never seen anybody with so much confidence. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you get a striker that don't score for 6 weeks or 6 games, and you know they go to pieces. But he was so confident in his own ability, unbelievable. And you know, his finishing was the power that he could finish at. Just he was just a different level. But even you're going about those players. But when I went in, there was players that they were trying to get rid of. There was Tony Dorigo, there was Thomas Brolin,
Mm-hmm.
there was Ian Rush, Carlton Palmer. You know, the list goes on about the players that George Graham was trying to move out. So when I went in there, it was very similar to you go into Rangers. It's a who's of football when you go in there, and as I say, it was a great experience. And we loved Leeds as a place. We ended up staying there for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Our family stayed there, so no, great memories there. Obviously, the injury part of it, and I feel that I let down George Graham and the supporters, that the fact that I was only ever 70% fit.
And obviously, when you get the bad injury, Ian Hart emerges in that kind of left position.
Yeah.
Was that kind of sore for you, that like he was kind of young and coming through, and it took you 2 years to recover from injuries? Was it just bad? Did you feel mentally bad about just how it was going down?
I felt it was just a slog. You'd get back from a knee injury and then your groin. Someone else would go because it's compensating. I was a bit like a wounded horse, just waiting to get shot. And then finally, the surgeon told me, "That's it. You can't play that level anymore." And it was actually a relief more than anything that he actually said, "That's it. You can't play." But I made a few comebacks, and I almost went back to Aberdeen and Dundee. Wanted me to go back there. I went and played a friendly game for Barnsley, and they wanted me to go on loan there, but my knee just wouldn't do it. So when the surgeon says to me, "Look, you can't play that level anymore," it was a relief more than anything, because it was like, as you say, it was 2 years non-stop. You see everybody train, and you always know after a year, 18 months, that you're never ever going to be the player you were, and you knew for sure I wouldn't be playing for Leeds United. So whatever Ian Hart was doing, he's obviously a great player. I always knew that if I ever got back, I'd going to have to move to continue my career, but obviously I ran out of time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you would have done well at Leeds if injuries if you'd been lucky with injuries?
Yeah, I think I would have, because I think I was ready for a change.
Mm-hmm.
It was exciting. I remember we beat Manchester United 1-0 at Elland Road. It was a great atmosphere, great game, and again, but you're playing with all these big name players, playing against them, and with. And I just felt it had been more enjoyable, because every game was a struggle. I was popping, painkillers just to get through training, and anti-inflammatory tablets to get swelling down in my knee. It was a slog, and I just did anything I could to make sure I could play on the Saturday. Probably the detriment to myself again, but that's just the way I was. But I enjoyed it, but I just felt now, when the guy told me that's it, it was a relief more than anything, and it was like almost I could try and go on with whatever else was next in my life.
Yeah, and when you retired at 32, did you have a kind of backup plan of what you were going to do next?
Well, I was at the time I had a business partner that we actually started a computer company in Leeds, not far from where Leeds United trained. So, while I was injured, I was still, at times when I could, I was going in there to do the computer business part of it. And I did that for about a year, and then I sort of came out of that. But that sort of helped me transition from playing to, trying to have a normal life kind of thing. And it's more a case of, although I did find it hard, because I packed in, I think it was about the February or March or something. So by the time, everything's sorted out and I'm doing this business, it's the summertime.
Mm-hmm. And
then the hard part was when you watch TV and the season starts again and you're not part of it. Mm-hmm. That was a hard part. But that tided me over a little bit. And then I got involved in coaching at Leeds United a little bit. And went to Thailand and Vietnam with Leeds United coaching, which was was a good experience. I started doing my coaching badges, and then, believe it or not, I started to play charity games for Leeds United, old boys like with Peter Lorimer and Glenn Snowden and John Sheridan and guys like that. So I played all those guys, and suddenly I thought to myself, "Oh, I think I can play again.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realise that, I was 32 and the guys I was playing with were about 60, and I felt that somehow in my mind I felt I could play. And then I played a game, and I remember a mutual friend of John Sheeran, who was the manager of Montrose at the time. He called me up and says, "Oh, Mike says that you're back playing again. You want to come back up as a player coach?" And I goes, "Yep." I was delighted. I was excited. And I used to, believe it or not, commute from Leeds to Montrose a couple of times a week. And I think that just shows you that how much you miss the game, how much you want to be a part of it. And then you go and play for it in Montrose, and the Montrose are a fantastic club. Warm people. I really enjoyed it. John Sheeran was fantastic at the time, and we actually had potentially a very good team. I think with John McQuillan, Ian Golzine, Grant Johnson, Ray McKinnon, a real experienced team, but it just didn't kind of work out. And then after 9 games, I snapped my Achilles tendon, so my career really is over then. But then I continued coaching a little bit there, and then moved to Elgin. But, no, it was it was an eye opener as well. Going part time.
Yeah, you mentioned that you went to Elgin with Kenny Black. Like, how did that come about?
Well, I was actually I was at Montrose at the time, and Dennis Miller was the chairman of Elgin. He used to be on the board at Aberdeen, and he asked me if I'd be interested in being the manager of Elgin. So I took it and I went there. And then it was after about a year that Kenny came in as my assistant, and we both started the Skill Seekers program with Ian Vigers. He was part of that when he played in the first team at Elgin at 15.
Yeah,
we had a good setup, so we managed to get some of the players full time. Obviously, some were still part time. With big ambitions and big plans for the club, and at that point, I was sort of putting a bit of money in myself to pay players' wages. Kenny was doing the same, because we were very, very ambitious, and we wanted to do well with the team. And I think the second or third season I was there, we got 5th in the league, just outside the playoffs. And I think when I eventually left, I think we were in around the playoff positions. But Kenny tried to buy some shares and get the majority shareholding at the club, and we both thought it was a foregone conclusion, and we could move on, and Kenny could obviously put plans into place as to what he wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, the last minute, there was some other shares somewhere else that someone else bought, and that was it. Kenny didn't get the club. Obviously he left, and I quickly resigned and just basically said, enough's enough.
Yeah, and you go back to Montrose, where was it Eddie Walecki that was there with you as well?
Yeah, Eddie Walecki was
there.
How good
was that? How good was that to go back there? Like, what was he like?
It was good. Obviously, I enjoyed the club. I think, to be fair to Eddie was put in a pretty bad position. He was the manager there. I came in as co-manager, and I think it was sort of forced upon him more than anything. So it was uncomfortable. He eventually left, and I became the manager. And we had a good start to the time when I was manager. I got manager of the month, and then players were getting signed, and all these players were coming in. Some of them I didn't know too much about, and I just the results started to go downhill, and I just felt that it wasn't really what I was wanting to do, and it's the shortest I've ever been at a club or whatever. And I just felt that I need a change.
Yeah.
And it was hard going. I think the disappointment of the Elgin thing, then going to Montrose, and being a co-manager, then manager, it didn't sit too well with me.
And obviously after that, you take the decision to leave Scotland. Did you always kind of plan to move to elsewhere? Like,
well, no. Believe it or not, at the end of my career, I had one or two opportunities to go to the MLS. Obviously, injuries put paid to that. And me and the family every summer when there was 5-6 weeks off, we'd rent a house in Orlando, stay there for 5 weeks, and just live the life kind of thing. So we always fancied that. And then I got the opportunity to go to America, a club called Sereno in Phoenix, a youth club, coaching 3 teams at the time. Just thought it was a good opportunity. Obviously the kids particularly Chelsea, my daughter, she was about 14 or 15 at the time. She found it very, very difficult. But we ended up staying there for 10 years. You know, it was a great 10 years. You know, kids spent most of their life there. All 3 kids went to college and university there, so that was good. And then, like everything else, you know, probably there too long, 10 years at the Club Sereno. You know, things turned sour, a lot of politics in youth soccer there. So that came to an end. But during that time, I was, you know, the head coach of Phoenix FC Wolves, which is now Phoenix Rising. Didier Drogba played for them a year or so ago. So we started that franchise. But again, you know, that turned out a little bit sour. You know, it was a good experience. It was good to get back into professional football. And I think that gave me the bug to try and continue in that vein. And like you said, we signed Scott Morrison, we signed Darren Mackey, and we signed Anthony Obadiah, played at Ajax in Ghana. So, you know, with some very, very good players there. But, you know, Darren, it's a short season there. Darren came over and he played up front with a guy called Aaron King. And they hit it off really well in pre-season. But the first game, or the last training session before the first game of the season, Darren pulls his groin. So, you know, when he does come back, he's only ever half fit. But there's a funny story about Darren when we were there. So we went through a bit of a bad spell because there was a point where the players weren't getting paid. So I had to try and motivate the players. I'm, you know, buying them crates of beer and buses, going to game to try and keep them happy, keep them morale up. And we're going pretty well, but we'll go to this place, Tampa. And we're playing in this, it's a college stadium. And there's a lake behind one of the goals. So we're playing really well in the first half, absolutely battering Tampa, and they were a good team. So start the second half, Anthony Obadiah clean through in the goalkeeper takes him down, penalty kick, goalkeeper off, down to 10 men. I thought to myself, this is our day. Darren steps up. He hadn't scored a goal by this time. He steps up, runs up, hits his ball over the bar into the lake. And I got like, oh, I can't believe it. 2 minutes later, Tampa got the park and score 1-0. And as the goal goes in, I turn around and I see this ball floating away miles away. And I think, oh my goodness. And then the club ran out of money. So eventually we ended up almost playing in a public park. And our last game was against Richmond kicker. Tam McManus actually played for them and he scored. And Darren Mackey's only goal in the US was an own goal. He scored an own goal. So that was a bit of a tough experience, but again, it was all part of it. It's good.
Was the standard good over there?
No, it's good. It's getting better and better. You know, there's a lot of the college soccer over there. I don't think it gets the credit it deserves because it is, you know, it's good. I don't think anybody really gives it the real credit it deserves. So I think that's a big problem in the US. You know, my son was there for a long time, and I think that's how we found it hard to get a club back in Scotland. You know, he's playing here in India with me, and there's ISL clubs wanting him, and so you know he's top talent. But I think playing in America, there's a bit of a stigma attached to it.
Yeah, definitely. You move on to India. When did you first hear that there was a job at Kashmir?
Well, believe it or not, about a month or so before, well, maybe about 8 months before, I got offered a job in China, which I never took. And then around about the same time as Kashmir, there was a job in Uganda, and I turned that down and offered Real Kashmir, and absolutely no idea anything about India, anything about the I-League, nothing. So I just jumped and had a go at it, which turned out to be, at the time, probably not the greatest idea. I didn't understand, I didn't know, I did no research. It was actually a war zone I was going to. You know, the most heavily militarized zone in the world that I'm going to, and I didn't understand that. You know, in India, 90% of the country's in sunshine all year. In Kashmir, there's harsh winters, there's 4 seasons, it's bleak, internet goes out. It's just, at times, it's horrendous. And I went there, and, you know, against my wife's blessing, and should I say, so she wasn't too happy with me. No internet, can't call home. Mason's trying to come to Scotland to play football. I can't get in touch with him. it was horrendous at the start. It was really, really bad.
Yeah. And obviously, when you get in and take the manager's job, you get promoted to the first division. Was that always a target to get the club up to the highest league?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I just came in and had to basically scrap the team and start again. I had to do trials. Had to look at videos at foreign players. I didn't really know the league, to be honest, and with a very, very low budget in the I League 2. And so I remember somebody told me, they said, look, whatever you do in this league, don't lose games. Don't try and force a win. Just don't lose games. And we never lost a game, and we got promoted. And it was probably one of the greatest achievements based on, because I know the journey. We'd have to go on 30-hour train journeys, 30-hour bus journeys, go in the back of vegetable trucks to training, you name it. It's just incredible, just exactly how much we had to go through. And when you look back at it and you think, God, I mean, I was living in a house in Kashmir, bed went on fire, electric blanket went on fire.
Oh, really?
I was in my bed one night. My assistant Jimmy, his toilet blew up. The cistern blew up in a million bits. You got to go to the bathroom one night and there was no toilet, it was just a hole in the wall. Just so many hurdles and disasters. And when I first went there was no kit, no balls, nothing. No stadium, there's no dressing rooms, and now we get 20,000 at games. We've got floodlights, we've got dressing rooms. We're sponsored by Adidas. It's incredible how it's all turned around.
Yeah. How did the documentary come about with the BBC?
I was actually coming back from after winning the I League 2, and I got a message from Greg Clark. I don't know how he got in fact, his cousin is actually Derek Lilly, who I played with at Leeds United, and somehow he got in touch with me and he said, I'm looking to do something, a Scotsman doing something bizarre. So he came up to the house and he did like a test run. I told him a story about one of the things that happened there, and they sent it to BBC and he got commissioned. And then he came out for probably a total about maybe 10 weeks or something, at different times to film it. And it's weird because when you first go under the camera, you're a bit conscious of it, but because it's the microphone's on you 24/7 and you don't see the camera all the time, and by this time I'm good friends with Greg, I totally forget that I'm on camera. And then I'm blowing up, I'm swearing, and after a while I'd say to Greg, you're not putting that bit in there. You're not putting, no, that's going in, that's going in. Oh, come on. And then after I blow up, and I never blow up at the team. It's all about what happens to my team. Because I'm very protective of my players. And it's always about, the stuff they've got to deal with, the stuff I've got to deal with. And it's nothing to do with our players. And there was one time I blew up the youth coach and I walked away because I had to go to a meeting. And I just thought, oh no, I can't believe I just did that. And then the worst part was the first documentary. I hadn't seen it until a couple of days before it went on air, and I'm watching it and I'm cringing, thinking, "Oh no, hope this bit's not on it. Oh no, remember this. Oh no," and it was just, it was horrendous.
And obviously, your son Mason's over there with you as well. Like, do you think he's going to progress pretty well? And what's the plan with Mason? Is it the plan always to come back home?
I think he'd like to come back, or I think he'd like to go to the USA. His fiance's in Phoenix, so it's been hard for him the last year or so because of the COVID thing, and been playing over here. So I think his ideal thing is to go to the MLS or the USL or whatever, just to be closer to her. But he's been fantastic. His first year, you take your son over and you think, is he going to be good enough? And he ends up to be. I'm not just saying because my son, he's probably one of the best players in the league. First year he got offered, a job to go to the ISL, and I think if he doesn't go to the USA, I think maybe next year he should possibly go to the ISL. I think, but he's been fantastic. I think he's found it hard at part-time level, but now he's full-time. He's been full-time. It's his third season full-time, and he's looking great. He's in fantastic shape.
Brilliant. Is there any players over there that could be pretty good?
No, there's a lot of good players. I've just signed Afghanistan captain because you allowed last year it was 6 foreign players. This year it's 4, but want us to be of Asian descent. So we've got Amiri, captain, signed a player, Lukman, a striker from Nigeria, and we've obviously got Mason, and we've got Depanda Dika, who's been the top goal scorer in the league. He's from Cameroon, so he's hopefully he'll score some goals for us. But last season we had a player, Krizo. He was 6'7" striker. But they could. The one thing about India is it's the easiest place for a player to get a visa.
Right.
So it's easier. So you think of all the players from Africa and all around the world that are maybe not playing for a country, get enough caps to get visas. They'll get a game in India. And I think the levels, pretty high. Plus the Indian players are good. We've got one player, Danish Farouk, from Kashmir. I've had him for 4 years now. And he's attracting attention from the ISL and the Indian national team as well. So, and I've just signed an Indian international as well. So, no, the level's very, very good here.
Brilliant. And what's the plan? What's your kind of plans? Are you planning on staying out there long term, or would you be interested in coming back over at some point?
I'd obviously like to come back in Scotland or England, but it's very, very difficult being out for so long.
Yeah.
That would be nice to be closer at home, but it is very tough. Last season before, the first season in the I League, I was away from home for 9 months, and I find that quite hard being away from home. I enjoyed the break during the lockdown before I came back here. So yeah, ideally I'd like to go back to the UK or Europe, but it's a tall order. There's so many coaches and managers looking for jobs, and but it would be hard to leave here as well, because it is it's been great. It sounds a bit weird. It's probably the most ideal and the best job that I could imagine, but it's just in the wrong place.
Definitely.
It's just I've just got an emotional attachment to the club and to Sandeep, the owner, and the people of Kashmir.
Brilliant. Are you all right closing with some quick fire questions?
Yeah, no problem. Yep.
Brilliant.
No problem.
Out of your whole career, who would you say was the best player you ever played with?
Brian Laudrup.
Really? Is it hard to split him and Gazza?
Well, no, I think just the relationship I had with Laudrup was that it was always be Stuart McCall would give Laudrup the ball, I would make a run, and he'd thread it through an eye of a needle. And 9 times out of 10 he would find me, and it's a joy to play with. Even just watching him destroy teams, just fantastic.
Brilliant. Best player you played against?
I think the player I struggled against the most, I've played against Beckham and Giggs and Overmars and all these guys, great players, but the player that gave me the most problems is a guy that you probably never heard of, Ivo Den Beeman. He played at Montrose, he played at Dundee, he played at Dunfermline, and I think he might have played at Raith Rovers. And every time I played against him, he would destroy me, and I had no clue what he was doing. I don't think he knew what he was doing. But he's definitely the toughest opponent.
Brilliant. Favourite away ground you played at in your career?
I think Pittodrie. I know I played there as a kid and I supported there, but when I went back with Rangers, just the atmosphere, and then obviously I'm going back. I'm quite a determined character, and when people turn against me, it sort of spurs me on even more. And I think that at Pittodrie that happened. It was great when I played there, but when I went there as an away player, and you win, it was so satisfying, and just the atmosphere of it, and just brilliant.
Brilliant. Favourite film or TV show?
Me and my wife, we watch a lot of Netflix stuff and that kind of stuff, but we actually watched The Fall recently. We really enjoyed that. It was good. But we watch a lot of shows and TV. I think she's got me onto Bridgerton or something just now. We sort of watch it when I'm away. We'll watch things together on the iPad and stuff like that. We'll sort of watch stuff together. But no, we watch a lot of TV. Mainly series on Netflix.
Brilliant. Interesting fact about yourself?
a lot of people think that I'm quite this tough, hard guy and swear and all sorts, but believe it or not, I'm actually very, very sensitive. Like we lost a dog probably about 2 years ago, Sammy, a Cocker Spaniel, and I still can't get over him. And obviously my mum passed away recently as well. So those kind of things, but animals, and I love animals. We've got a rescue dog when we lived in America called Dexter. He's a poodle. He had a bad leg, so he had to get amputated. So he's got 3 legs. We flew him back to Scotland when we moved back, and we inherited my daughter's a boyfriend in America. He had a cat, came to stay with us in America for 2 weeks, and 5 years later on, the cat's in Scotland with us.
Oh, brilliant.
So we've got other dogs, just animals. We just love animals, and but I'm very. If I lose a pet, I'm very. It takes me a long, long time to go over it.
Who would you say was your best friend in football?
I would think players that I've played with, probably Paul Mason. I keep in touch. It's very difficult because of where I am in the world and how things are. But Paul Mason, probably the best friend that I was involved with at football. But during coaching, I've had many, good friends. Danny Sonner worked with me in America. I think that's a good thing about football. A lot of good friends. But I think currently, the owner of Real Kashmir, Sandeep Chatu, is not just an employer, but he's just a good friend. He's been great with my family, and it's as I say, it's not a working relationship. It's like a friendship relationship. And my only fear with it is that, I think he'd find it hard to get rid of me. I'd find it hard to leave. But at some point, it's going to have to come to an end at some point. Mm-hmm. There's only so much I can do, only so far I can take the club, and obviously he's an ambitious man, but that'll be a sad day when it comes. But as long as we remain friends after it, that's the most important thing.
Definitely. Final question. I can imagine this is hard because you've played under 3 of the best managers in Scottish football history. Who would you say was the best manager you played under?
Walter Smith. I think, like I said before about his man management skills, I remember the first thing he said to me was, "You look after me and I'll look after you."
Brilliant.
And I think it was, as a player, it's the best 6 years that I've played. I've enjoyed being successful. Even little things. If we go and play Aberdeen on the Saturday, on Thursday, he'd say, "Look, get yourself up and see your family." So I'd go on a Thursday. If we win, he'd say, "Okay, I'll see you on Tuesday," or something. He would always instigate me going to Aberdeen to see my family or stay longer. Just a great guy, and I think everybody that's played for him would run through a brick wall for the man.
Brilliant. David, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show. I can't thank you enough for joining me. I've really enjoyed it.
No problem. That's
Thanks
good.
very
I've enjoyed
much.
it too. It's been brilliant.
Thanks very much, David. Cheers.
No
All the best.
Okay.
Cheers.
Things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through.